Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. There are some hot topics out there, and not only are they hot topics, but they could have some collateral effects on your life when it comes to benefits, especially mortgage, buying houses, interest rates. All these different things are flying all over the place. So that's why we have David here with us now. David Piatek, VA Housing Education, rock star, subject matter expert, veteran, and reservist, and it's all these different hats, which is great. What's really fun is that I actually have some chickens laying some eggs in the background for us, David. So
That's
that's going to be
awesome.
fun. Yeah, I know. So, welcome to my world. Here's my question for you, David. With everybody has seen the Trump Zelensky stuff going on, and what is happening with tariffs and all these
Yeah.
different things. What sort of things can we think are going to trickle down into the U.S. economy? Right, this is global stuff,
Right.
and how does that affect me in the city and town that I live in the middle of wherever?
That's well, that's a loaded question. Number one, thank you, Jason. So everyone understands like what happens when decisions are made or there is uncertainty in the markets. Now, a lot of stuff, Jason, you mentioned is on a global scale, right? It doesn't just affect us because it affects other countries. So when we see shifts or uncertainty, we see shifts in our markets, which is the stock markets and bond markets, which primarily drives what interest rates are on the lending side, right? And I'm not a financial advisor by any means, but we look at this stuff every day because we want to analyze what, or at least predict what is going to be happening in the future. Because a lot of veterans who shift away from the area they live and go for job opportunities exist. And then the bond market, same thing. If people are taking money out of the stock market, they need to put it somewhere, right? And normally they're just not holding out in cash. They're trying to make money on that money. So they're throwing it into bonds. So it just kind of, you see that shift where, we talked about this before, where the Fed fund drops the interest rate. Well, that doesn't mean the mortgage rates are going down. In fact, it's the opposite because stocks historically are going to do much better. And then when stocks do better, bonds need to go up in price to attract investors. And so the opposite happens when the stock market is going down because people are pulling money out of the market. They're putting that money into the bond market, which then they could lower the yield because they know people need to put that money somewhere. That was a very more technical, but it kind of goes back to when you have tariffs being applied at 25%, like the that was implemented. That's going to have sometimes a direct impact for consumers, and I say that sometimes because, Jason, right now I'm doing a home renovation and I'm going to share a quick story about inflation.
Yeah.
I got two quotes. One, the standard price was 50% higher than what the price was from somebody else. 50%. That's the MSRP price. They gave me a retail price. And, you think about the cost of goods and you think about everything that's just for windows. That's not including the window installation. That's not including the trimming. And that's just an easy example. So really, I encourage people to shop around for things that you need because a lot of times you can get better deals somewhere else. So yes, inflation can be an issue, but also we just have people that want to make a lot of money off of you, especially in the veteran community. And I did a whole video on that just on VA loans, where a lot of lenders do charge crazy money just to use your own, you pay for your own benefits. So I know I went on a rant there. I
Yeah.
love this stuff, so I want to just
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least convey this.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love it. And on the any sort of renovation or project or
Yeah.
anything you're doing, I'm 100% with you. Get two or three quotes, right?
Yeah.
Don't just stop at the first one because you just never know the there might be something much better for you. Now, one thing you mentioned, David, and I thought this was really an eye opener for people. When you're talking about Washington D.C. and you're talking about the mass layoffs. I mean, big, just huge, thousands and thousands of people. Now, granted, it's nationwide, but there's a big number in the DC area and the surrounding areas that are being essentially laid off. And what that does to the housing market, there is going to most likely be a big increase in houses going up on the market. You would think. Um,
Right.
who knows? I mean, it could be that everybody gets a remote job working for whoever,
Yeah.
and now they just work there and they work at home, right? Nobody sells their house. But it could be that everybody goes, well, if I don't have to work here now and I'm looking for a job, I find something in, let's say, Texas. We're moving to Texas, honey. We're going to go live in Austin now, or Dallas, or we're moving to Miami, or we're moving to California, or wherever, because I found a good job that pays good.
Right.
So if the latter of those, well, I sandwich it and I said it that they would all sell. Then I said they wouldn't. Then I said they all would. Whatever. So the first one and the last one of everybody putting their house up on the market,
Yeah.
what sort of effect would you see in a housing market? I mean, what happens to the dynamic of seller, buyer, all of that type of stuff? Who wins in that situation?
Jason, I think you have a lot of loaded questions for me today. So thank you for that. All right. So it's a bit complicated in the sense that, right, obviously, general statement, supply and demand is how prices, right, kind of go, right? The lower the supply, the higher demand, prices go up and vice versa. But it also depends on the area because we're already in general in a housing shortage, right? So if you have these, which reality is happening as we speak right now, or it has happened, where there's a lot of layoffs, more homes are being listed because people are like, finally I can leave and go somewhere else. Good for you. But then there's already a log of people that are looking to backfill those areas. Now, let's just say, for example, in the DC market area, a lot of it's government driven. So if there's not jobs there and people are listing their homes for sale, and normally you would have like a replacement of people. Like if you PCS, if you're leaving an area, someone else is coming to backfill that, right? So that makes sense. Like the housing market stays very stable. Like in Arlington, in like the Virginia, Maryland, they have PCSing happening all the time. But I don't think that's really happening within the DC area itself, like the DC proper. So you're going to have a certain amount of gap that's going to be filled. And then the other part's going to be, well, if there's not enough people to occupy it, they're going to keep dropping that price, which we have seen. Now, this is why it's very dynamic and it doesn't affect everyone the same. But I would say in an area where it is heavily federal employees, not your military, right? Because that's not really being affected. In fact, it's the opposite. More people are joining. So we'll see kind of what effect that has on certain areas. But yeah, that's a good question, and it really is going to depend on your area. But that's why you have to really watch the real estate market and where you live. And we are also going through a big shift because we're going from a or a winter market to a spring market. So people might be waiting till let's say May, June, July. That's like the hottest time of the year, and that's when the most transactions happen, and it's crazy competitive. And we're already seeing that shift happen right now. So if you're thinking about, should I step into homeownership now or later, I would take now would be kind of like the better option for people because it is a bit slower.
Right.
And we've seen price reductions, and that's typically where you can get the most credits. But again, everyone's stage in life is different. That's why I have the channel, because you can go and educate yourself. If you're thinking about how does my benefit work with the VA loan in X, I'm going to have that on my channel. Just go in the search feature and check it out.
That's true, and that's VA housing education.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the description and in the comments for you. Look, my take on that is, even if you don't think that's something you're going to need today, subscribe so it just pops up. And if there's something that's ever sparking an interest for you or a family member, a friend, then it's going to be at your fingertips, and you can share that information with them as well. It doesn't cost you a nickel. That's the beauty of YouTube.
Not even a penny.
Not even a penny. That's true. But a penny feels like like it doesn't even
Well, they're
exist
going to get rid
anymore.
of the penny, so.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, I mean, if we're cutting waste, man, pennies are a waste. I'm just going to say. So let's talk about tariffs again, because you so eloquently went around it. So so when we're looking at look, there's two types of houses you can buy. I mean, there's more than that, but I'm just going to you could buy a house that's already been built and lived in, or you can buy a brand new house, right? Builders out there, well, they don't really pound nails so much anymore. They're nail gunning it, right?
Yep.
And look, are we gonna see a potential of a higher cost for building material? Remember when COVID happened, and all of a sudden
That was
building
wild.
materials. I mean, and they still haven't really come all the way back to where they should be. I mean,
Nope.
God, I went to go buy a piece of plywood the other day, and it was like $50.
For
So,
plywood?
dude, well, okay, there's different styles of
The
plywood
different
you can
grades.
buy.
I'm learning that right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, you could buy the real rough, nasty, you're never gonna look at it again plywood, or you could buy the ones that are kind of finished up and
Yeah.
nice and you can paint it and that type of stuff, and the thicknesses and all that stuff. Anyway, a plywood will go up to like almost like around $100 a sheet, depending on how nice you want to do a piece of plywood. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the collateral effects of tariffs on new homes? Just a thought. I mean, look, there's no guarantee anything's going to happen
There's
either
no
way. I
guarantee.
mean, look, this is all guesses at this point.
Yeah.
And
I
since you're a
mean,
mortgage guy, it's an estimate. It's a roundabout. It should be somewhere near. It's something
right.
like it's somewhere in between here and there. That's how we do it.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, look, from a logical perspective, right? If the cost to deliver a good to somewhere has increased, typically a company doesn't absorb that cost unless it fears that that increase in the cost will like not allow it to make its revenue, if that makes sense, right? So 25% increase is significant. When you think about, let's say, and it depends where you get material from. A lot of the United States gets materials from outside the country, right? Cabinets, like I'm looking at kitchen cabinets right now, and those cabinets come from overseas. So if those kitchen cabinets cost $20,000, and now I have a 25% increase on that, let's just say they pass it on now $25,000. That's not little money. $5,000 is a lot. But you think about that in a general scale. Let's talk about average home of average price point of a property is $400,000. So if let's say a new home to build now is $500,000 and it goes up 100,000 overnight, which in theory it can. Now remember, we already have current supply that is delivered here that is not taxed. Could they say, hey, overnight we're going to just go ahead and increase our prices so we can profit on that 25%? And then when the new shipments come in, we'll continue just to keep those prices, or just say inflation or whatever it is. Or people that have already purchased all the lumber and everything that they need ahead of time, they're saving that money, and then that money's not being passed on. So it's going to be a toss-up. And we also have the issue of labor as well, which is another big piece to this, that contractors do say like they are short on labor workers. I think everybody wants to go into marketing or something like that. So I think there's going to be a comeback to manufacturing, because working in construction is really good money, especially if you do like renovations, new home builds. We still have a housing shortage in general. So in theory, we're going to see price increases across the board for anything that is imported, which is a lot of material. That's the short story.
Yeah, nice. So I know I have you for a limited time. So before we go though, for folks that are maybe not in home ownership today, okay, I'm gonna categorize it as two different people with an additional benefit for each of them that's kind of the same, and how that would work. Okay, let's talk about somebody who's in the military, right? So my son, for example, he's in the military, and he's got his housing allowance. He's got a dependent. He's got a housing allowance, and so that's one example of somebody who could be looking for a home. Then the other is maybe a veteran, right, who has disability compensation. So they don't have housing allowance, but they have disability compensation. Both of these additional benefits are not taxed. Can you just kind of walk us through what qualifying with these additional benefits looks like for home ownership?
So I mean that's like a 2-hour conversation, but let me give you the
Well,
short and
yeah,
skinny.
the condensed version.
Let me give you the short and skinny on it. So Non-taxable income per the VA can be grossed up 25% additional, right? Because it's not taxed. And I do get a lot of questions that people reach out like, oh, my lender said that it was 115%, or some say no, because they have overlays to what the VA allows, right? On our end, we're just kind of going with what the VA says in that sense. So one, it gives you a little bit of a boost for qualification. Two, depending on what your rating is, you can get a property tax break, which I have a whole bunch of videos on my channel around that, how to search it, because you really need to do your research, Jason. Like if you are just thinking on a whim because your buddy told you that, oh, you don't have to pay taxes, then we look into it and you're like, wait a second, you actually get a reduction in the estimated value. You still pay taxes on that. So for veterans that receive VA disability compensation, that's a huge benefit. And how you structure what you want your payment to be based on your disability is up to you. Plus, the lender does have a qualification that they're going to have to meet. And if you have a regular income, that's just a bonus. And now, if you're in the active duty component, that BAH that you receive tax-free, again, that can be grossed up, opening up opportunities to purchase a property, which I'm going to do a whole separate set of videos on, like investing with a VA loan or like investment strategies for veterans and active duty folks, because there's so many opportunities that veterans pass up to create generational wealth.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, David. And I know that we're over our time a little bit, but I'm going to keep you here until you're like, hey, I gotta go. So one of the things that I'm thinking about here is, and this is more targeted toward the person who might be thinking about joining the military. So let's swim upstream, right? If you can get people when they're young to make the right moves in life, right? So now you have somebody, let's say they have a family, right? I got a wife or I got a husband, right? So that's the person we're dealing with. We're thinking about starting a family. My job isn't the greatest. I'm thinking about joining the military, right? Either spouse. And now it's like, okay, I get that I can get my school and all that stuff, right? All the things that the recruiter tells you, cool. But once I join the military, let's talk about home ownership at the earliest point in your military career. When can somebody who steps, boom, I've sworn in, now I'm part of the U.S. military. When does my VA benefit for home ownership kick in? When can I start? I think that some people think they have to actually get out of the military and then they can use it. And unless they talk to somebody, it's just like benefits, just like disability compensation, right? It's usually another veteran who's saying, "Hey, look, you need to go do this." So it might be the story of, "Hey, I bought a house while I'm still in. You need to go buy a house." Well, how
Right.
about the people that don't know, that didn't have somebody tell them that, right? And they're just living in base housing, and that's their life, right? So how early can somebody start this home ownership process after they join the military?
Yeah, Jason, that is a big misconception for a lot of folks around that. So during peacetime, within 6 months of joining, you're already eligible to use your VA loan. Now, that is for active duty individuals, not guard or reservists. That's a little bit different, right? So if you join the service on the 1st of January, by the time you hit that 6th month, then you can apply for your certificate of eligibility and you can use the VA loan. Now, does it make sense if you're a private to just go out and buy a place? It can, because there's also affordable housing, and I'm going to do a whole video on that, because there's and I just kind of came across that recently, where huge benefit for veterans that are in the lower ranks, that maybe don't make as much money, because they have opportunities to be able to do that. So 6 months being in, and then if you get out of the service from active duty, you really 24 months of active duty service, and you're qualified. If you're in the guard or reserve, you typically will need to have 6 years of drilling status and have all your points accounted for. Now, if you serve on active duty for 2 years prior to joining the guard, you already have your benefits. And if you serve 1 day but are medically discharged, you still have your VA benefits. And I want to point that out for folks that may have are in the service right now, that might be on a type of profile that they're going to be discharged from. Make sure that you stick it out, that you get a medical discharge, because Jason, I see so many veterans get taken advantage of an active duty where they're trying to say, oh, we can get you out quicker, but you're just going to have a general discharge. Now you don't have those benefits and you forego your VA disability compensation. And now you got these challenges in life that you could have overcome by just being a little bit more patient and watching videos like this so you can kind of get through that. National Guard members do have a benefit over reservists because they changed the rules. And I'm going to do a video on this here shortly for the National Guard, that if you serve a total of 90 days, which 30 of those days are cumulative on Title 32 orders, which is unique to the National Guard because they serve both the state and federal for non-training events like the people that did COVID relief, people that do flood relief, then they could actually get their benefits much sooner. Or the other way is for both Guard and Reserve. If you serve on active duty, not training for Title 10 orders of 90 days or more, you're also eligible for benefits. And there's plenty of deployment opportunities. Even if they're stateside, they're still considered Title 10 active duty orders, and you can get those. So keep that in mind. There's tons of benefits that, again, veterans pass up, Jason, all the time. And even if, like you mentioned, like you may not need it right now. And it's not about right now. It's about being aware of what you actually have. And, Jason, credit for, working with, not working, but like doing these videos with you guys. I talked to a client the other day and I'm like, look, you need to, like they kind of walked me through a situation. Like, have you filed for VA disability unless you're buying a home? And 17 years, they've put it off. And finally, just pounding it into them, they're like, yes, yesterday got the text that we filed our intent to file. And it's like, why do you hold off on educating yourself? It's missed opportunities. And if you have the wrong information, you pass the wrong information. So it actually hurts people.
Right.
So,
yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm going to wrap this up with the point that you made about going through essentially the med board process, right? And so when you go through the med board process for those that are, you basically have two different avenues so you should push on this avenue of going through the med board process, right? Instead of taking the general and leaving the door, right? Because you're going to miss out on opportunities and it's going to be a much steeper hill to climb to get things done and all that. So through the med board process, there's two kind of avenues you can go. You can go with what's called LDES or IDES. LDES is the legacy version of the disability evaluation system, so legacy disability evaluation system. And then there's IDES, the integrated disability evaluation system. The difference between the two is LDES just pushes you out with your medical discharge, right? And then IDES is integrated. They're integrating it with a VA claim. So they help you package the VA claim, all that stuff, and they file your VA claim kind of like a BDD, a benefits delivery discharge, but kind of a medical board version of that as they're pushing you out. Now, here's my word of advice for anybody going through LDES. LDES takes a little bit longer. You might, very rarely will you, but you might want to take LDES because it's faster. Let's say that you got a great job somewhere, but they want you to start in 2 months. You might want to take LDES and just rock through the process and then file your claim yourself after the fact. If you have time, do the integrated. You're going to work in tandem to get those benefits. And that's going to help you on the outside because now you already have some benefits in place. You have that income coming in that David said we can gross up, making it be more than it is, right? Instead of $1,000 per month, it becomes $1,250 for qualification purposes, which is fantastic. And it's just whatever your dollar amount is, right? IDES doesn't usually get everything right as far as your disability claim is concerned. So if in fact you have other conditions that they may not have filed for, don't worry, you can file for those conditions at a later time, right? You can always file claims with the VA. It's not a one-shot only deal. You can take as many bites of the VA apple as you want. So with that, any parting last thoughts for you, David?
Yeah, one thing I'll say is don't deny yourself for your benefits. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to walk you through that. I mean, I do mortgages, so I can help you walk you through your financial situation, at least point you in the right direction, even if we can't do something. So always happy to help. And Jason, thanks again for having me on. Another, I think, good collaboration on just getting the information out to the veteran community.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure, David. And again, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to his channel. Super great. And it helps to share the word. And again, whether it's helping you directly today or not, it is definitely helping one of our brothers or sisters out there. And David is a subject matter expert, and it's always, always good to have a second set of eyes on something. I'll tell you this, and I hate to commit you, David, but I'm going to.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If you have a pre-approval from another lender for a purchase or a refinance or whatever, and you have the nuts and bolts of it, share that information with David, and he'll tell you, yeah, it looks good. You're solid. Or, you know what? I think I can probably save you X. And it's just, again, it's kind of like getting those quotes for the cabinets or whatever other home improvement you want. You know, have that second look from David. He'll be straight with you. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate you so very much. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.